Well, Jan, thank you for coming on the Best in BA podcast. I know we met through a networking group right here at
Yes.
She Works. And at the time, you were doing real estate, and you're still doing real estate.
Correct. I'm actually licensed in both Texas and Oklahoma, and just chose this position because my previous experience was in nonprofit in the Tulsa area, and my heart was drawn to that. So this is part-time. Real estate's full-time, part-time.
Yeah. And we can talk about both, but I know specifically today we wanted to talk about your new role, which I haven't learned a lot about, so I'm excited to learn more about it.
Oh, thank you.
So I would love to hear, I know you said that your heart's with nonprofit. What kind of started that out to lead you in this direction? And then we'll get into your current role.
Well, that goes way back in history. I was, a stay-at-home mom. I had a preschool here in Broken Arrow, a nationally accredited preschool, and I began training others how to get national accreditation. And so it was kind of pushed me into the tech, nonprofit, technology and nonprofit world. And my first position, because I had experience with children as well as those relationship building with teachers, because a lot of my parents of my preschool were teachers, I went to work for Prevent Blindness Oklahoma, doing vision screening all over Northeast Oklahoma. And so I did that for several years, went to junior achievement, recruiting thousands of volunteers to go in the classroom to teach about business and economics. And then later in my career, I started working for RSVP, which is Retired Senior Volunteer Program. And through all those, from childhood to seniors, I have had lots of experience in nonprofit. When I left Oklahoma 15 years ago, I had a hard time finding a job in nonprofit, and so I got into real estate. Wonderful, great career in real estate, and I approached it the same way I do nonprofit. Training is my heart, and helping others is my heart. And so I started, a very successful career there. We came to a point in our life that we decided to come back home. And so coming back home, yes, 15 years of real estate. I'm still going to do real estate. I'm going to help friends, families, people who come to me for help, not necessarily me seeking them for sales. I will do real estate. But I decided to get back into nonprofit. And so I wanted something right here in Broken Arrow, right here where my heart is, where my grandchildren, my family is. And this came across my plate of an auxiliary in Broken Arrow. I have to tell you, I had to Google auxiliary.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do we mean there?
So an auxiliary is a nonprofit, but it's formed differently. Most nonprofits have a mission and a purpose that they're serving the community, where an auxiliary is actually under a university, a school, or a hospital, and they're designed to help the entity that they're under. And so Ascension St. John's Auxiliary, Broken Arrow, serves the staff, the organization, the patients, the guests that come to our local hospital with the services that volunteers provide.
So at the hospital, what is the main function of your team, and what does your role look like there?
Well, I am part-time. I am a volunteer coordinator, and so my number one goal when I started is they only had someone there part-time 2 days a week and working at other communities. And so bringing me in there, I live here, am really embedded and want to be a part of the community. I'm trying to recruit and educate people that this nonprofit and this service is available right here in Broken Arrow. What a lot of people don't realize is Ascension St. John's is the only true, hospital in Broken Arrow. The other two big hospitals, their revenue, all of those things go to Tulsa because they're on the other side of the line. Ascension St. John's is the only one that everything is there to serve our community. And it's designed and mission and goals are all about the Broken Arrow community. But my job is to bring in volunteers from age 15, as when they have to have completed ninth grade, all the way to our oldest volunteer is 100.
Wow.
We have volunteers at what we lovingly call Big John, which is in downtown Tulsa and Utica, that have served over 3,000 or 30,000, hours. For 30 years. They have been volunteering.
And those volunteers who come in, what are is there a variety of volunteer positions that you help fill?
Yes. So the youth volunteers typically are students that want to learn more about the health industry. So they're going to serve on the floors. And so they're going to serve in this med surge. Those are patients who have come out of surgery and need to be hospitalized, or for some reason are hospitalized for other medical reasons, or they serve in ICU. And so they're able to assist with the care, the comfort care of those patients. They're assisting the nurses with everything from answering the call lights, because when you push that call light as a patient, you want a response really quickly. They may not know it instantly how to resolve what that patient is calling for, but that response is quick. They're going to help with bringing them warm blankets when they're cold, bringing them ice water with the permission of the nurses, run errands for them, and help with the discharge and helping them pack up their things when they're ready to go home. Then after the youth have served 50 hours, they have the privilege of serving in the ER. It's actually called ED now. It's not a room; it's a whole department. The acronyms had to change for me. It's taking a little bit for my mindset. But they are exposed to a much larger variety of things that the nurses and the doctors are doing. Our hospital is small. Since I've been there since October, I took this position. The largest number of patients in the hospital has been 28. It's a relatively small boutique hospital. But in the ED, there can be 60, 80 patients a day coming in. So it's a more interactive volunteer service for those youth. And that's why they need to have served with us a while, to make sure they're ready for that kind of the things they might be seeing and not necessarily being a part of, but they can enter the room for procedures and see things a little bit more deeply.
Right.
The other, which is the greatest need for the hospital, is typically during the day, and it's serving in surgery waiting. This is an area where patients and their families come in, and the patients are taken back for their surgery while their families wait. It's very lonely and uncomfortable in a long period of time if there is no one there giving you information that's going on in the back. I mean, it could be 45 minutes and you thought it was going to be a 15-minute procedure. And so a volunteer there during the day, keeping that communication going between the front and the back is vital. And it helps those patients feel like, not worried about their families sitting out in the lobby, as well as the other way, the guests worrying about the patients. And it's just part of the culture to keep communication, keeping care, making sure that we're meeting not just the physical and the medical needs, but the emotional needs of the guests and the patients. And right now, I think I have two adult volunteers serving in that area and two college students serving in that area, and I have a need for that almost every single day. There's a shift available for that. They typically serve from 8 to 12 and 12 to 4. And as we fill those positions and they're completely full, and the hospital's surgeries increase, we would fill the positions from 4 to 8. So someone is in that area making sure that communication. This is a volunteer that could be doing things like they're waiting as well. They could be doing studies if they're a college student, but they need to be attentive, as well as an adult maybe doing their Bible study, or someone who loves to read And it's an absolute beautiful view from our largest building in Broken Arrow, looking out over our community because it's windows all the way around. So it's a very peaceful, wonderful place to volunteer. That volunteer needs to be empathetic and not shy, because you need to communicate with those people who are waiting, and be able to go back and go, I need information about this patient. Can you get it to me right away? So they need to be assertive and not afraid. I couldn't find out anything. I'm sorry, I don't know. We don't want that kind of volunteer in there. The other is the gift shop, and that again is a daytime, not weekends, service, and that is in great need, because the gift shop is what funds the auxiliary to be able to provide those volunteers. It's a small gift shop. And since I have come on, I've tried to, make it look more like things that women want to come in and buy, purses and earrings and candles and those kind of things, as well as some of those, needs like candy bars and aspirin and those and T-shirts that the staff might need. But the volunteers in there, I let them take ownership while you're here volunteering. Move things around. It's great to have things changed up. If you don't like something and you think it's not ever going to sell here, bring it to the MAC and we'll talk about it, and we'll discuss whether it needs to be out. So I let them take ownership and possession, like that they're truly a part of that gift shop. Again, those volunteers would, need to be empathetic and caring, and because the families are waiting. Someone's waiting to go back for a procedure. They're wandering around. They're nervous. They're scared. And so they're not necessarily in the gift shop to buy anything. Sometimes they're there just for a smile. Some of them don't want to speak at all. And sometimes those volunteers will just spend 15, 20 minutes with you sharing what's going on in their life. And that volunteer needs to be a very empathetic, compassionate person. A volunteer recently shared with me, she became a volunteer with us because she thought it was going to be fun. And she said it has become so much more than just being fun. She has developed a relationship with a guest that her grandmother was being put in hospice, and she has now fill that role of her, now deceased grandmother. And so she said, I now have a granddaughter, adopted granddaughter from just me serving here as a volunteer. That relationship became so deep just from, 15, 20-minute conversation in the gift shop. And that person comes in the gift shop all the time, knows the day she's volunteering, comes in and checks on her. There are additional places to volunteer, of course, at other locations. In the summertime, we have a unique program, and it's for the junior volunteers, and it's where the junior volunteers can come in and do all of their hours when school is out. It's pretty intense. It adds to the positions that I have available. I may be able to put them in radiology. I may be able to put them back in record keeping, some other things as we fill those. I already have 17 applications for the summer program. Our Broken Arrow location right now has 30 active volunteers. So it's not as big as Big John, who has 100 volunteers, but we are beginning to fill all of those spots that the youth look for after school. So almost every one of the evening shifts from 4 to 8, as well as the weekends are full. And so those junior volunteers over the summer fill those daytime and the other positions that are available. Gives them exposure to the hospital, the healthcare environment, and they're able, I tell them, you're going to learn as much as you interact. If you just sit there and you just answer the phones and you just put the blankets in the warmer and you just stock the carts, that's all you're going to learn. But if you hear the nurses talking about something, or you see something on, the charts or the boards, ask questions, and you're going to learn as much as you interact with it. And the nurses, welcome and absolutely love the volunteers in Broken Arrow. They look forward to them every time I tell them they have a new one come to the floor. Thank you, Jan. They're so excited to have somebody that they're going to share their industry with, and they're going to tell them the good, bad, and ugly about, being in the nursing or any portion of the healthcare. Sorry, I rambled a lot.
No, that's really good. Well, it was, you answered really a bunch of the questions I was going to ask you about the positions and stuff. So you saved me a lot of work. No, that's really cool. And then just there was a point at the end that you kind of said, just like they get out of it what they ask. I mean, I see that with business, with what I'm doing. When I first got into business, right out of college, running a window cleaning business, I feel like I was pretty timid, like a little bit scared to ask like seasoned business owners questions. And when I started to realize, if I ask questions, like they pour into me, like that's so real. And I would imagine it's the same in every industry, where it's like people have knowledge that they've worked their life to gain. And once someone starts asking them and gets to pick their brain on something they love the most, like it's an amazing opportunity. So on top of just a volunteer opportunity, it's a career building and educational opportunity. I mean, you can learn so much in college and in school, but until you're actually there, maybe you're like, man, this was not what I expected. I need to be in a different area, or this is everything I expected and more. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
Well, I have a new volunteer who just joined us, and I was surprised at her application. She is an Army medic. She is an EMT in a small town, and she's a nursing student. And I was like, why do you want to volunteer? She said, I see the front end when I'm bringing them in, when I'm doing some medical procedures in the Army, but I want to see the backside. So kind of like Wizard of Oz pulling back the curtain, she wants to see the other side and more exposure to what it's really like to be a nurse. Is there going to be, in the 4 to 8 shift, a lot of quiet time? Hopefully after, 7 o'clock, it's very quiet there. But there may be an emergency. You have to be there. You have to be alert. And so those are the exposures that she's the volunteers get to see. If any of the volunteers come and tell me that they're bored in an area, that's because you're not asking enough questions. You're not engaging with the nursing staff.
There's more than enough for them to do and ask and learn.
And if there is quiet times, ask if you can study. And that's the only activity that, is acceptable while you're volunteering, is learning. So you're there to learn as well as serve. But if they, if there is, no activity that the nurses have for them, as long as they're studying with the ability, they're not going to go shut themselves in the back room, with the ability to be alert when things happen. Then I do not mind if they spend some time learning, because most of them are nursing or medical or science, or in those classes that it applies to what they're doing while they're serving.
And for a lot of them, it probably is requirements as well.
A lot of them, for coming in for some hours for college. That some of the applications for college applications, as well as National Honor Society. But the volunteers who I have brought on, they are very involved. They surprise me, all the activities they're doing. I say, are you sure you have time for this? And they say, absolutely. So I always make sure, and then as school year, activities happen and they're not able to serve, I say, please just let me know. That you're not going to be able to come, and I'll have a substitute come in during your shift. Because I believe by the time the summer comes, when I have all these applications come in for these summer students, they're going to be more than willing to come fill in for an evening or an afternoon shift.
So for the waiting room volunteer positions, you said, they need to be empathetic, they need to be alert, they need to be, personable, be able to talk to people. Is there an age or male, female? Is there any sort of like that or whoever will be there?
Absolutely not. I think that this is, we have, as I said, senior volunteers that, in their retirement age, they're looking for, ways to engage, get out in the community and be involved. But I do have college age students in there as well that spend some of that time. They may serve in another area, area that they're not able to do some studies, but in that area they're able to, study and when they're in between interacting with those guests and patients. But no, it's all about availability. And I think that that's something has shifted in the 15 years I was gone from Oklahoma. When I left, I worked with seniors with RSVP, and we placed volunteers in nonprofits all over Tulsa, and there was hundreds of volunteers. The senior adult volunteers are harder to find. I think that they're working longer. They're caring for other family members as well as grandchildren and traveling and those kind of things. Where the generation of I retired to go serve, I think that what I knew of in the 60s and 70s, those that were, retiring, that was the mindset, is you retire and serve, and it keeps you engaged and active. I think that has shifted quite a bit to retire to care.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I guess it's those things that, like, if you're not in it, you don't see the change, but
I didn't see it. And until I took this position, I was actually surprised by it.
Yeah. So you think it's, this is aside from what we're talking about, but that's fascinating to me because it's like there's a lot of, there's senior living homes and facilities and places around. It's shocking to me that, I don't know. I guess I don't really know. It's just an interesting shift.
Our Broken Arrow Senior Center is huge and active and overflowing. And I just became a member. And so I will be speaking to, their director. She's new, getting her feet wet. So I'm not bugging her too much. But I think that's a great place for me to find. I don't want to take away from the volunteers that serve there because they need volunteers to run their hundreds of classes. I was overwhelmed by our senior center and so proud of it. So, and coming back downtown and now the senior centers are the two things I'm most proud of my hometown. But I think there's an opportunity there for education that they just don't know it's available. They think about the hospital, downtown and parking and traffic and those kind of things. They don't realize we have that opportunity right here in an easy parking spots and the different kinds of positions.
It's not super far from there either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Senior Center won the Best MBA for nonprofit this year. I had met some of the staff when I delivered their little congratulations package, and they're like, "We had it posted in our lobby. They were voting every day," and I'm like, "That's a little bit of a cheat code there. They have people just with time on their hands."
When I toured, I was amazed at how parking. That was, you could tell how busy it was just from the parking. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find a parking spot. I had to walk across the street. And then walking through the halls, how active it was. Well, it was lunchtime. Mm-hmm. And so they do have a large population that come in. And when I was in Texas, I work with Meals on Wheels, and that's how I served in the nonprofit world, but more on putting on galas and sitting on committees and stuff, rather than the direct service that I'm doing through the auxiliary.
Yeah, well, that's super cool. I mean, I'm hopeful that we can blast out the need for volunteers in those positions and hopefully find you a few more volunteers. That would be huge.
Yes. And, the gift shop is also in need because that's what keeps the funds coming in to be able to keep the auxiliary going to support the hospital.
If you could I know we went deep into each. Could you just run through kind of boom, boom, boom on your volunteer needs right now?
I'm gonna start with the greatest need, and the greatest need is the surgery waiting, and that's where volunteers connect and keep that communication between the back where the surgery is happening and their guests who brought them in. The second greatest need, of course, is the gift shop, and that's where we raise the funds to keep the auxiliary going, as well as engage with the patients and guests that come in, sometimes just with a smile or a conversation. From there, the junior volunteers, 15 and older, all the way through college, can serve on the surgery med floor the ICU, and after they've served for 50 hours, they can serve in the ED.
Is that ED, the emergency department?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. It took me a minute, ER versus ED. I was like, I kept saying it wrong.
I was thinking it was.
And I guess it's been that way for a long time, but TV, it's been imprinted in our brain. So I try to say ED now instead of ER because I get corrected.
ED. Yeah, I guess. I think nobody knows it. I think only the.
It's not a room, it's a department.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. No, and that's just one thing on the Best in BA stuff that I've been doing. It's been cool. Like just in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I've met more people associated with nonprofits, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. There's opportunity for it to be more than love promoting businesses, love highlighting business owners, but it's like I think the bones of what keeps the city going are the nonprofits and are oftentimes the volunteers who are not seen, who do not boast that they're volunteering. They're not bragging about it. But I met with BA Neighbors, the Demand Project, and then there's another one guy who's running a nonprofit where he does free haircuts. It's called the Comb Foundation for first responders and veterans. So it's like there's so many nonprofits in different places where we can volunteer our time, we can donate our money, however we are able. I think for a lot of nonprofits, at least from what I hear, is one of the biggest needs. Obviously, money is a need. One of the biggest needs is we need people, people who are willing to come in and give some time. And I did want to ask, in the volunteer positions, do you have minimum hours that you kind of ask people to come in for?
Yes. For the junior volunteers, we ask for a 50-hour commitment. That's when I first saw these numbers, it took me back. 50 hours can be completed in serving 2 4-hour shifts from in the time that school is out. Most of the volunteers I like to recruit is those that are available not just for the summer. They may start in the summer, but I tuck them into continuing to serve if the positions are available. And they get their 50 hours very quickly. I had one who came on, and through the holidays, she served 8 hours on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Because you get double hours. And so she was able to get through those quickly. So the last part of the school year, she was able to take a break. And when she comes back, she'll qualify for being in the ED.
Yeah.
And then for the adults, we request that they volunteer 100 hours. The reason for the commitment is not necessarily, committing to do those weekly or, bi-weekly. However, it's just a commitment that we can depend on you for a period of time, because we're going to do a few things when you come on. The first thing is we're going to provide you with a badge. This badge also gives access to different areas. We're going to give the junior volunteers a polo with a logo and the adults a smock. We're going to do a health assessment. So that health assessment is just basic. Make sure that you don't have things that are going to spread to the patients. During flu season, the volunteers are required to have a flu shot. So that is one restriction I have heard from some of the volunteers. They choose not to get a flu shot. So they serve April until September. So there is an opportunity for them to serve if that's not what they want to do. And then we're also going to provide them with a meal. So we give them a meal ticket. Unfortunately, our bistro, not cafeteria, hospital, they actually can, make it any way you want. It's truly a bistro, very nice area that they can get a meal, is only open till 3. So if they serve the 4 to 8 shift, they might want to come in early and grab a meal before their shift. They're so good that the volunteers typically during the day only eat about half of it and take the rest of it home. So great meals that are provided, and it feels like a home-cooked meal because a lot of those nurses are there long hours. seeing behind the curtain during the recent snowstorm was eye-opening for me with those nurses and their responsibility, and as well as their commitment to those patients and what they did. They were actually sleeping at the hospital to make sure that those shifts were covered and those patients were cared for. They didn't want to leave, and get stuck, in the snow and not be able to get back. And then all the preparation, from the ordering the food ahead and all the things that you don't think about that a hospital does to prepare for, a possibility of some not necessarily shutdown, but slowdown. The education on seeing behind the curtain has been quite an eye-opener for me. And my respect for the medical field is just greatly improved.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and just sharing all of that. I'm sure there's a lot more to learn, but we're gonna share this and we're gonna see if we can fill some of those positions.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'm watching you grow and spread the word and promote Broken Arrow. I'm proud of you and what you're doing.
Thank you very much.